Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Joney Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to my friend Mr. Mage. He's a UK-based personal finance blogger on his journey to reach financial independence. He has a principled view on how he intends to reach this goal, and to him, financial independence can be achieved by anyone, no matter your income today or your background. We will discuss a few of his principles and how anyone can start building his personal path to financial independence. We touch upon topics such as growing your income, work-life balance, his approach to investing, and on that note, we also talk about his take on peer-to-peer lending platforms. This episode is absolutely for you if you want to achieve financial independence, no matter your income level nor background. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Hello, Mage. How are you doing today?
Hey, Joney. I'm awesome, thank you. It's like really nice weather outside, and things are looking up, and I think we're going to be out of this lockdown quite soon.
Okay, very good. And where are you based, actually? Are you based in the UK? I can hear some sort of accent there.
Yeah, based in the UK, like actually based in Scotland. You're probably not familiar enough with UK accents, but I don't have a Scottish accent. I'm not Scottish, but I've lived in Scotland for getting on 16, 17 years, but I haven't picked up the accent yet. And it's a beautiful place, like just out the window, I can turn around and I can see the hills and the river and the sea and the castle. It's really, really beautiful place.
Yeah, well, actually, I am a little bit familiar with Scotland. I had a project in my 9-to-5 in 2013, so I flew a lot to Aberdeen and the surroundings. So I've had the chance to one time have a nice team building around there, and it was beautiful. I mean, Aberdeen itself, well, I will not go again by myself, but the surroundings were beautiful. It was great, and we had some nice whiskeys and stuff like this. So you live in a beautiful place, my friend.
Yeah, it's we feel really blessed about it. Like it's literally 10 minutes down the road, and you're on a beach where there's absolutely nobody about. It's so amazing. We're really lucky to have like decent paid jobs in an area like this.
Okay, very cool. And Mage, we connected on Twitter. You are a blogger, a personal finance blogger, and I read a few of your posts. And there were a few that really interested me, and that's why I asked you to come on the show to maybe discuss them more in details and present them to the audience, because I think they are quite interesting for them, and they contain actionable tips. Two topics in particular were interesting me to discuss today. Is achieving financial independence. It is for everybody, not just for not rich, but high income earning tech people that live in the US. And there was also the topic of peer-to-peer lending, which we can touch upon later on. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about your current financial situation? I mean, your job, what are you doing, or what's your occupation today? And what's your financial goals?
Yes, certainly. So I think, firstly, thanks so much for reaching out. Like, it's a real privilege to be on your podcast. It's awesome. Thanks so much for inviting me. I think the first article that you've called out, the 8 reasons financial independence is for everybody. It touches on a couple of things that I find quite important. First, it's really about principles. And I try to be principle centric. I don't know if you've read Covey's 7 Habits.
Yes.
But I try to be principled. I always fail and I end up being work centric, but I try to be principled. So I think that's the first thing. And I think the second thing that is probably really good talking about is whilst I'm in a decent paid job now, myself and the other Mage, my other half, wind back to the beginning of this journey, we had nothing. We were living in a council house in Scotland with very little income. But it's about growing that experience and that journey over years, over many, many years. And that's why it's for anybody. It's like you're not going to achieve it tomorrow. You're not going to achieve it in 6 months. But if you start taking principled steps towards this, you can start to really change your financial situation. At least that's my view.
Yes, and that's I think that's quite interesting because, sometimes you talk to friends or people in general, and then you talk about investing in the stock markets, which is one of my ways to grow my income and to try to achieve financial independence earlier than the age of retirement. And people will say, yeah, but it's for rich people, this and that. I would like to earn 1 million a year, or I would like to do this, and this is the only way, or you need to do this job, or you need to be a CEO. But in a way, to me, I don't believe this. I mean, yes, of course, if you're a CEO, it's much more easier to achieve financial independence, but it's not only about that. I think if you put work into it, you can accelerate your path to financial independence.
Yeah, totally. Like, initially, you need to use your time. You need to use your time and your energy to grow more income. Mm-hmm. So that's, working more hours, working smarter hours, and trying to get on a better career path. Spending your time to invest in yourself so that your output can drive more income. Mm-hmm. Like imagine that you're on the lowest paid job possible. You're doing a cleaning job. Try and find another cleaning job. Work, extra hours, and you will grow your income. What you do with that extra income is you start to look for ways to drive more income that's not a function of your time. It's not like an output of you. Mm-hmm. It's your money making money for you. So there's loads of ways of doing that. And, stock market's one, P2P investing's another, setting up, like another side business that you aim to drive repeatable revenue from is another. There's loads and loads of different ways of achieving that. But I think that the point is to try to look to relentlessly grow your income and try and get that income rebalance that over time so that income is coming from itself, from its investments, not as a function of your output.
Yeah, and a typical example is, for example, real estate. Maybe that's you need to save a lot of money to get there, but at least you have, let's say, a rental property, and then it pays you in a way because you get some rental income. Is that one of the examples?
Yeah, that's totally one of the examples. And I think I'm not really like particularly passionate about any of those. I like to try a mix and see what lands. I like to experiment. Mm-hmm. But I'm also quite conservative, so I don't like to take huge risks where there's a risk of loss of capital. So I personally wouldn't put all of my wealth in one rental property in case something happened with that property, that the tenants defaulted for 6 months. It's a matter of diversification for me. So I tend to look for things that are well diversified and quite low risk, which does reduce the amount of return that I get, but it lets me sleep at night.
Yeah, and that's important. Absolutely. I like that what you said about sleeping at night, because if you cannot sleep at night, then you haven't made a good investment or a good financial decision. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's why personal finance is personal, because different people react differently to different pressures, So for me and the other money mage, we're both quite conservative. So having to, sit up at night worrying about money is the last thing that we need to do.
Mm-hmm. And then, Mr. Money Mage, how did you grow your income over time, actually? Which ways did you use to grow that income?
Yeah, so we, both myself and the other Money Mage, we started off in very low paid jobs. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate enough to have a career in software. So I have relatively above average income. Mm-hmm. We're both really quite frugal when it comes to living. Like we have really, really low monthly expenditure. like sub $1,000 we can survive on. So that allows us to save and invest quite a significant portion of our take-home pay.
And in that $1,000, do you include a rent or your mortgage payment in there?
So we're fortunate enough now to be mortgage free. So property in this area of Scotland is really reasonably priced.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the fancy word for this is geo arbitrage. It's like living in a cost-effective area of the UK has allowed us to pay our mortgage off and not have any rental costs or mortgage costs. So our obviously it wasn't like that. Wind back 5 years, it wasn't like that 5 years ago. But today, our living costs are really, really low, and that's awesome because it means that we've got money that we can save and invest. As I said, we do that quite cautiously. So a good portion of our portfolio is in good old boring cash, which is achieving very little today. It's losing money probably, but it's there as I talk about sleeping at night. It's there as a significant buffer in a time like this. We don't have mortgage payments, and we could probably live on our cash savings for a good few years. So we're really kind of sheltered from problem, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the UK, it's a really good tax efficient way to invest in retirement savings. So you basically pay no tax on your investments at a point of contribution. So from your gross salary, you can put in up to about £40,000, getting on 50,000, 45,000 euros per annum into your pension, which you can invest how you like. And I tend to put mine in low-cost index trackers, balanced relatively conservatively. Like I'm nowhere near 100% equities. It's probably about 60% equities, 40% fixed income, and that has grown. I've been doing that personally. The other money mage not so much, but I've been doing that personally since I started earning a salary that was able to do that, which is probably getting on 12 years now. And that has grown from nothing to something quite respectable over those 12 years. It's retirement funds, so it's tied up. I'm not going to be seeing that money until I retire at I think it's 57 is the earliest that I can take that in the current laws. So we're also building a non kind of retirement wrapped equivalent. Again, the UK is pretty good place to do that. So you can put from net income, so from your taxable income, you can put up to 20k a year in a tax efficient savings and investment account. They're called individual savings accounts, and you don't pay any tax on any gains or dividend in those accounts for their lifetime. So again, they're another great instrument to kind of grow savings and investments. And for me, I do the same. It's a relatively balanced, non-aggressive portfolio. It's a relatively conservative portfolio of.
And you haven't contributed a little more to your ISA, to your savings account now in this period of economic meltdown, or at least in this bear market?
So again, I guess one of our kind of, talk about sleeping at night. We're really creatures of habit. So this COVID situation has not affected us at all. We're both still working. We're both out of jobs. I have not changed my pension contributions. I have not changed my my ISA contributions. I haven't changed what I'm putting aside in cash. It's just another month. And I know that's probably quite unusual. I know lots of people are probably
eager to enter the market or to buy more shares.
Absolutely. Like for us, it's just another month and we're just continuing to do what we always do.
Yeah.
And that's just meaning, with unit cost averaging, that just means we're buying more units at the moment.
Yeah, no, but that's good. And then you seem to really enjoy your sleep.
Very much so.
So yeah, Money Mage, that's quite great. And yeah, you seem to really enjoy and privilege your sleep, which is important, which keeps you a fresh mind and how can I say, sharp thinking along the day. So I really like that. And then just I have a question, because you said you were working in software. I'm just thinking about the question of growing your income. Okay, you invest, it's conservative, but then you sleep well at night. But then on the job side, on the income side, your main income, have you taken steps to grow that income? Have you trying to get promotions, etc., or how do you see that?
Yeah, this is kind of like an interesting point. I'm going to go back to sleep again. I've actually I've done the whole climbing the corporate ladder thing. So I started off as a junior software engineer, and I went all the way up to a co-CTO position. So I was like executive level for a wee while.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually gone backwards without taking a significant drop in salary, but with a drop in salary, because I found the work-life balance not fulfilling when climbing that ladder too high. It basically was turning into a 7-day-a-week job, 60, 70 hours a week, answering the phone to other executives every minute of every day, worrying about the business and where the income was coming for the business,
mm-hmm.
and worrying about the jobs of my colleagues and worrying about where the next sale was coming from. And I just went, I've had enough of this. This is not the path to happiness. I don't need that level of income to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually took a step down back to just being an engineer. So I don't have any form of management responsibilities at the moment, and I haven't done for getting on 12 months now. And I think it's kind of similar message about the personal finance thing. It's like each to their own, really. It's like you can totally go and climb that corporate ladder to get more income, but what's it going to do to you? And you could totally put all of your money and portfolio in P2P loans, but what's it going to do to you?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a balance, and as I say, I try to live a principled way of doing things and a way of life, and I try to work on those habits, of growing income, but not growing income at the expense of well-being.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I totally understand you. I mean, I haven't reached or I'm not striving at getting to executive level unless it's my own company or my own venture, I would say. But it's true that, I mean, I've been a team leader. I've been managing some people myself. It's quite great. It gives you good feeling. You get a good attention. You get a better salary, etc. And at some point it's good, but then I'm wondering, what's next? Then you climb, but then what's next? Because in the end, you're paid more, but you work more, or you have more responsibilities, and then it becomes calls in the weekends, or I don't know. In your case, maybe the server is down. I don't know what the solution breaks, and in my case, maybe it would be there's an operation, this and that happened. Some people on a boat are blocked because of customs clearance, because some part or some object has not been custom cleared. Something is wrong in the procurement chain, whatever. All sorts of these things can happen during the weekends, during your free time. So yeah, your sleep is disrupted. And for what in the end, like for I don't know, let's say 800 euros a month more. Okay, yeah, it's nice, but then you sleep less and you're stressed more. So maybe there's other ways to make those 800 euros or this extra income by, for example, investing. So yeah, it's all a balance, actually.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, and you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right that, there's a degree of climbing the corporate ladder where it tips over from being good and useful into being negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that period of negativity was when I couldn't, in my spare time, what little spare time I had, I couldn't invest in myself. I couldn't improve myself. I couldn't, all I could do was kind of vegetate. And that really isn't good. So, you don't have to just invest in, stocks and shares or, funds or whatever. You can invest in yourself to get new skills, to go into a different career path, or you can, invest in skills that allow you to start up your own side business.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that sensibly, you can do that in a way that kind of adds value to your main career. In software, like there's different disciplines, there's like designers, there's artists, there's software engineers, there's project managers, and you can kind of broaden your horizon a wee bit by, in your little side ventures, doing something that you wouldn't necessarily do in your day-to-day job,
mm-hmm.
but that levels you up a little bit in your day-to-day job.
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, I'm just thinking that, if you write about personal finance on your blog, then you improve your writing skills. I don't know if that can help you in your job particularly, but it's a way to develop skills and way of thinking maybe, and thinking about money. And, then it's stuff you maybe don't notice at first, but then maybe over time you develop a certain amount of skills, writing, thinking about money. And then you put that back, or investing and percentages and calculating things. Then you see how that works in your software job, actually.
Yeah, like absolutely. Like most software engineers are notoriously bad at communication. So for me, writing and talking on podcasts is really useful, because it's something that it makes my. I think we were talking about this on Twitter with Tony, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, about how the brain plasticity, like how the brain is malleable. If all I did every day was write code, my brain would be wired a certain way. So it's really good to kind of do these other things, and not just other things like having fun, like other things that kind of skill you up and level you up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. I like that. And then just back to the topic of making extra income. Because one of the reasons I invited you is as well to talk about peer-to-peer lending. So I don't know, what's your experience exactly with the peer-to-peer platforms?
So I've only tinkered and I've run away. As I've said through this, I myself and the other money mage, we're both quite conservative investors. So where we see a high risk of loss of capital, we would be naturally averse to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the peer-to-peer space, it's a spectrum. Nothing's black and white. There are definitely some good platforms out there. I think the thing that's given me the biggest pause for concern is the kind of gung-ho nature of some of it. Like, there's people been seeing 20-30% returns off some of these platforms, and I think if you're seeing that kind of return, you can expect a high level of risk. So if you're comfortable with that, and if your portfolio is diverse enough to absorb that level of risk, like, by all means give it a go. But I think for the people just starting out on this journey, you probably should be questioning it, especially at a time like this. There's going to be most of those platforms suffering heavy defaults at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of like reserve tanks, at least in the UK. Even the big UK peer-to-peer lenders like Funding Circle and Rate Setter, they're their kind of reserve tanks that they dip into to cover defaults are dry or nearly dry. So it's a sector that I think people should be cautious about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this kind of investments, I have a little portfolio as well with Mintos and the other company, Crowdester. I talked about it on the episode with the Wealthy Finn.
Yeah.
Because there it's an episode really on peer-to-peer lending and platforms, and he has experience with that, so we go in the details. I've experimented a bit with that, but I'm still cautious as well, even though I'm a bit more aggressive than you, for example, with regards to investing. It's more, I wanted to try it out and see an experiment, so I put a small sum in those platforms. But indeed, as you say, I agree that if the listeners, have not started investing yet, I would not start with peer-to-peer lending just because it's a bit, I would not say, well, it's been there for a few years already, but maybe it can be risky. It has not shown as much resilience as the stock markets or real estate, etc. So it's fairly recent. So it's more like use your fund money in it that you're ready to lose, but not maybe your savings for 5 years.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think if one thing that will be this is what will be tricky for me is what's the definition of fund money? Because I think I could put 5 or 10K down on something like that until it came to the loss, if that makes sense. I would convince myself that it would be fine to lose 5 or 10K until that loss actually happens. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so cautious about it. But yeah, I think I'm supportive. If it's just fun money, by all means.
If you have 500 euros, you think you can lose it, or 500 pounds, okay. Just try it, see for yourself if it works. Considering that, for example, the rest of your money, 20,000 euros or 20K or more, is invested or saved in some, like for example, you mentioned the savings account, the retirement accounts, then it's money working for you anyway. And those 500 euros, well, okay, maybe you will not sleep well for 2 nights, but at least it's okay. if you upfront you say, well, look, it's 500 euros lost, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where I get nervous is seeing people that have got 30-40% of their portfolio in it, and I do hope they manage to get their funds out, or they manage to get their funds out before it all falls down, because it does feel like it's going to fall down.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of communication on Twitter. I've only used those 2 platforms I mentioned, but yeah, I've seen some comments in here and there. I didn't go into the details, but yeah, apparently some, as you mentioned, some platforms are defaulting, etc., or it's getting hard to get your money back at the moment. Yeah,
there's a big UK one that I think that's closed their secondary market, which basically makes it impossible to get your money back, your capital out. Yeah, and then you're exposed to the loan entirely. So yeah, worrying times.
And then Mage, I had a question for you, because back to your story, you mentioned that at first, well, you started with low-paying jobs, and then, okay, you made your way up. But I was wondering that along the way, from then to today, what resources, books, podcasts, blogs have you been reading to help you on the way? What source of information did you use, actually?
I think all the kind of books that I'm going to mention are probably kind of books that I've done the round in kind of software entrepreneurship. So I think if I called out 2, it'd probably be, I'll call out 3. There's a guy called Eric Ries, which you've probably heard of, who wrote The Lean Startup, which is about failing early and failing often and improving. And it's kind of born out of the Toyota production system. So I think Eric Ries' book, The Lean Startup, the Toyota production system. So the Toyota Way is the name of the book. It's much more of a boring read than Eric Ries' book, but it's more kind of like management thinking and systems thinking.
Okay.
But it's really good at making you think about the wider picture and the wider system, rather than just the thing that's a kind of front and center at the moment. And then the third one is probably, and I've already called it out on the podcast, is Covey's Seven Habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like, whilst it's a bit of a cliche to kind of mention it, but I think that whole like looking after oneself and identifying what you are about and what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it and how you're doing that in kind of like a good altruistic way. I think those three are probably the kind of things that have flipped my mind. Talking about malleable brains, have flipped my mind out of writing code into, trying to live life.
Mm-hmm. And then this, reading those three books, getting inspired, taking action, this led you to then improve your financial life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they've helped my, and like directly so as well. Like they changed how I started interacting in my job and with my peers. So I wasn't just talking about code. I was talking about the system and the company and the market and kind of more business thinking, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing about the 7 Habits. Back in the days, at my first job, it was actually in software. I'm not a software engineer, but I was more like on the sales side.
Yeah.
And advising, consulting for our clients. But we had a seminar on this book, the 7 Habits. And then it was like 3 days, and then you saw videos, etc. And then you needed to apply the book. You saw some passages. We didn't read it then, but we saw some passages, and then we applied some main ideas, some videos, and there was one thing. It was about, you see actually Stephen Covey in a video, and he's 80 years old or something.
Yeah.
With his family. And then the question is in the book, which you need to think for yourself. It's like, okay, just imagine you're 80 years old today. What would you like to have achieved during your life? And then you see him with family, etc. And it's nice. It's a dinner. And then actually this scene, it got me thinking, okay, well, how do I want to live until 80 years old? Or what do I want to have achieved by then? Yeah. And then this kind of starts, the brain process, and then it can lead to financial independence or whatever, but at least it gets you, it gets your brains working.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the important thing is like, where do you want to be? What do you want to do? How are you going to get there? And how are you going to get there in a positive, altruistic way?
Okay, very good, very good. And then back to now, something pops in about you because you wrote I think it's in your principles that budgets are BS. So can you explain a bit? Because common advice in personal finance is to budget or to keep track of your expenses, to know where your money is going. But then you say, no, budget is BS. Can you clarify?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I'm saying there is the BS kind of budget. So the one where you go, I have £500 a month, and I then start allocating that to certain. It's the kind of wrong way around budget where you go, I have this kind of income, and I'm going to divvy that income up against a bunch of buckets that allow me to spend in those buckets. That's the kind of budgeting I think is wholly wrong. I think the kind of budgeting that's right is the kind of budgeting where you measure, you fine tooth comb a couple of months actuals, and you figure out where your expenditures are going.
Okay, so there's a kind of tracking of expenses still.
Yeah, so I'm all for tracking of expenses. What I'm not for is going, I have a food budget of £200 a month. Therefore, I'm going to spend £200 of food a month. What I'm for is going, how much am I spending on food? And is that reasonable, or am I overspending? So I'm much more for the kind of fine tracking of expenditure, and really kind of relentlessly getting that expenditure down. We, the other money mage and I, more so than most, but like really applying pressure onto that expenditure. It's maybe a bit of a nuance. Like what I'm against is budgets via bucketing and dividing up your income into these kind of set categories. It's much more. I've found it much more useful to just aggressively track what you're spending and get that spend down.
Yeah, okay. So it's a bit in the nuance. So it's not totally opposite. It's just a bit more refined, and I want to see where my money is going and try to aggressively decrease my expenses then work my way up.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, very good. That is something I that striked me in your principle. So that's it. Okay, very good. And I'll link that as well in the show notes. So Money Mage, where are you now on your journey to financial independence? Are you said you're mortgage free, so are you there yet, or what are you working on these days?
So I think we're working on that grow your income, but I mean, the buzzword's passive income, isn't it? Like the income driving income for itself. So we're still looking to grow our, I guess like dividend paying income, and that's not necessarily coming from dividend stocks, but income earning investments is what we're looking at growing at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically to accelerate our path. I think we're nearly at the point where we have the net worth to achieve that. Probably wind forward 5 years and we'll probably hit that.
Mm-hmm. And you're trying to make your, let's say, dividend income or passive income or the same as your day job or something like that, or you have some kind of threshold there, or you focus on the net worth?
No, not looking to make it income from day job, but if we can get that to cover our expenses,
mm-hmm.
plus reasonable enjoyment costs, that would go a long way to us being free, really. I think when we get to that point, I don't think we'll stop working. I think it's just like another cushion, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally makes sense, Money Mage. So Money Mage, I think we've come at the end of the conversation of the show. And I think this conversation was quite good. I liked your approach because usually we are being told, and I say it myself, when you're young, you can be aggressive with investing while you have paid your mortgage, you're mortgage free, and you invest conservatively. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to achieve financial independence. So I like to hear different perspectives and see that it works as well. So people, the listeners can find what will let them sleep at night, actually. That's the best way to formulate it. So there's several ways, and you presented your way. I liked it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, John. It's been really good, and personal finance is personal, isn't it? So
absolutely,
it's great.
Excellent. And of course, before we head off, we have our quick fire questions. So the number one question, Money Mage, what has been your best investment so far?
My relationship with the other Money Mage, which is coming up 19 years.
Wow, that's nice. And then what is the best book you would recommend to anyone? I have already an idea, but it does not need to be financial. So what is it?
It's actually not going to be financial. So we're going to be colonizing Mars, aren't we? So I thoroughly recommend the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson.
Okay, so what is that about?
It's about it's a sci-fi trilogy about Mars. So it's about the colonization and terraforming of Mars.
Okay, very good. Well, I'll look it up and I'll link it as well. I've never heard this one. Usually I hear a lot of classics when I ask these questions. So very cool, very cool. That's also why I invite different people to hear new stuff. So very cool. And then the last question, Money Mage, what has been the best purchase you've made for under $100 or pounds in your case?
This one's going to be quite boring. It's probably going to be one of the first software engineering books I bought. I think it will have been like a Unix book or a Linux book or something. when I must have been, late teens, and self-taught off that book in the bedroom. And that kind of got me the career that I have now.
Okay, excellent. And then would that book still apply today? I mean, do you think it's too old technology for now, or too old programming?
No, totally not. It's still like a Unix administration book. So it's people still do that on a day-to-day basis. Dying, but people still do.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm not super tech, how can I say, super tech savvy. So yeah, okay. Anyway, so Money Mage, before you head off, how can people connect with you and read more about how to grow their income and reach financial independence in the UK or in Europe?
So you can get to Money Mage at moneymage.net, and you can find me on Twitter at moneymagery.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, well, thanks again. It was a pleasure to have you. And, it's a change from only Twitter. So now I hear your voice. I imagine a personality behind the Twitter account.
Awesome. And thanks so much for having me, Joney. It's been amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation with Mr. Money Mage. I thought it was quite inspiring, and I really liked his message. Reaching financial independence is for anybody, no matter your income level nor your background. And I hope you enjoyed this episode as well and that you learned something from it. So let's go to the key takeaways before we close off. Number 1, it is absolutely possible to reach financial independence, no matter your income level. The way to get there is to relentlessly seek for income growing opportunities, and namely through investing so that your income is not tied to your output. So let the money make money for you. Number 2, track your expenses and keep them as low as possible. Save and invest the rest. Number 3, climbing the corporate ladder has its perks and salary benefits, but it can come as well with a lot of stress and a reduced work-life balance. Endlessly looking for promotions is not the path to happiness, because you will always ask yourself, what's next? As we discussed, I think it's important for yourself to evaluate what the tipping point is for you between growing and building skills, and then entering a phase where it's only stress, work in the weekends, etc. Number 4, side activities can also help you build skills, which can help you in your day job. So these can be actually great ways to invest in yourself as well. And this can be through blogging, through podcasting, launching a digital market agency, many things. And last but not least, regarding investing your money, whether you're an aggressive investor or a more conservative one like Mr. Money Mage, one clear message from this conversation is that anyone should invest in a way that will let you sleep at night. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or feedback. Send me an email, john@joneytalks.com, or connect through social media at Joney Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.